Yeah, we're good to go. So, let's see. So tell me about, let's start from the beginning. Where were you born?
Baltimore, Maryland, 1925, January 16th.
And what, tell me about your family and what your parents did and stuff like that.
Well, my mother worked in a sewing factory. My father was a printer, worked in that building right there with the Emerson Tower on it.
The Bruma Seltzer Tower?
And as children, my mother would take us down so that we could see where our father worked. And he worked in a basement, and there was a window, on the sidewalk with a grate like where we could peep in and see him doing his printing one at a time. The printer had like a mouth that opened. Are you familiar with that?
I think so. Like the.
Like this is the printer upright, and it had this. And he had a rhythm, take out a page, put in one to be printed. And this is the way the printing was done then.
Oh yeah.
One at a time, big black press. So he worked there for many, many years, over 50 years.
What was his name?
His name?
Yeah.
Edward Charles Weckesser.
Okay.
And he went there and he was well liked. So you know how people say, any more home like you? And he could say yes. So several of his brothers followed him then and worked there for many years too.
And how many brothers did he have?
Let's see, Charles, Harry. Gosh, I haven't thought about this stuff for 100 years. Oh, well, there were about 8 in the family, and there was Aunt Lily and Aunt Charlotte. So that's 2 girls, and the rest were boys. And they lived near one another also. I was thinking about that the other day. Our family, we're here, family could be on the other side of the country and so forth and so on. But these people were kind of within walking distance, which is understandable for the times. And so we were in touch more easily.
Yeah. And what, let me back up again a second to his job. What was he printing?
Well, letters for Emerson Drug Company. Now, I'm not sure whether he actually printed the labels or not that went on the Bromo bottles. Mm-hmm. Because what I saw was the regular sheet of paper, not a label size.
Mm-hmm. Letters like that they would send out to customers or shareholders or something like that. Okay. And then what about your mom? What did she do?
Well, like I say, she worked in a sewing factory making different pieces of clothing. And I can still see my mom sitting in the kitchen crying because the needles had gone through her fingers, Wow. Makes me want to cry now just thinking about it.
Don't cry.
And her brother Harry worked in a pickle factory. Brother Gus baked at home. He had an illness that he wasn't able to work out in a usual place. So he would bake bread and buns, etc. And people would ask for him to do it, like give him an order. But then he had a little child's wagon where he would put the fresh baked things and deliver them in the neighborhood where we lived.
This is your uncle?
Uncle Gus.
Uncle Gus, okay. Mm-hmm. And your mom?
Uncle Harry, his brother. See, here's my grandmother right next door is Uncle Gus and his family. Uncle Harry worked in a pickle factory on McPhail Street, right across from where his mother lived at that time. Her name was Elizabeth Spiegel. Spiegel.
That is your right.
Mother,
That's your maiden name. That's your mom's.
my mom's maiden name.
Yeah.
And her mother came here when she was 9 years old from Germany.
Your mom's mom. Was the one who came over from Germany.
Right.
Okay. And
Michelstadt. That's our connection.
that's where she was from Michelstadt? That's the connection?
Not positive of that, but it's through that relationship, that the area.
That's our connection, like to Anna Louise Walty and Fritz and all that, right? Mm-hmm. Was through that side of it.
Yeah.
And okay, and how about her husband, your grandfather, on that side? What's his?
Both of my grandfathers, I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
They died early, so I don't remember them.
So, right, okay. So
And I was born in 1925, so.
You don't remember much about them. Do you remember their last names or anything like that?
Well, Spiegel and Weckeser,
Yeah. But
the grandfathers.
the grandfathers, right? Okay, so your grandmother came over from Germany when she was 9. Mm-hmm. And
I have a family tree.
But did she get? So she met Mr. Spiegel in Baltimore, the guy she married.
I don't know.
You don't know, okay. That's okay.
But I doubt that she met him before she was 9 years old. Right?
Well, yeah, people got married earlier back then, but not that early, I'm sure.
But he would smell like pickles,
That's funny.
From the vinegar and stuff.
Yeah, I like pickles.
Then there was Uncle Lou. There was Aunt Margaret on Holland Street.
Yeah.
And then next to her was the grandmother. And then about 3 or 4 houses down was Uncle Lou. Like I say, people live close to one another.
So they lived in, I remember Aunt Margaret.
Mm-hmm. Aunt Margaret,
She
I
lived
just mentioned her.
And Uncle Henry. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, I mean, they lived a long time. Like, I remember them from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And, so wait a second. Aunt Margaret was your
mother's sister.
Mother's sister, okay. And they lived on Holland Street, like in Southwest Baltimore?
Mm-hmm.
Holland's Market area?
Not that far down, further west.
Okay.
You know where Becker's pretzel factory was? I think it was called Becker's.
Not offhand, but...
Well, like the next street up was Franklintown Road.
Okay.
And walking to school, I would come at the base of Holland Street where they lived and up a back alley like that past that factory there, pretzels. And Aunt Lily had a store there, like a confectionery store.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Aunt Lily. Did she ever give you any free?
I'm trying to remember the name.
Treats?
It might have been Lombard Street. No, it was Catherine. Our church was right there in the block where they lived, was St. John Lutheran Church, and that was on Catherine and Lombard.
So, out of curiosity, you mentioned St. John Lutheran Church.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same? Did that same church move? Because the other church you went to in Linthicum was also St. John's Lutheran Church, wasn't it?
Who went to? Me or?
Yeah, the old church that we all used to go to. That was
the little old country church. Oh, now the brick church.
Yeah.
Like on the other side of this here, I have one of those little things of the church.
You know where like Pastor Gilroy was. That church.
Mm-hmm.
That's also St. John's. Is
Yeah.
that just a coincidence?
Mm-hmm.
That's just a coincidence. Okay. Anyway, so let's get to stuff that you. So you grew up in. What was the street that you grew up on as a kid? Like what was?
Furrow Street in Smallwood. Young, I'm not sure that I had started school yet in Smallwood Street, so we moved less than a block away on Furrow.
Okay. Which is in what part of Baltimore?
Southwest, I'd
Okay,
say.
down there.
It is the pits now.
Yeah.
Oh, it was awful when I went through there. It might have been a year ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Slummy.
Yeah. But it used to be working class
It
neighborhood.
was a small street. We lived on Smallwood, then we moved over to Furrow, and we went to school there on Ashton. You know, they're all very close. Everything's close together.
Yeah.
That school was across the street from Uncle Gus and my grandmother, where they lived.
And so how many kids were there? What was your family, your composition?
Well, Denny, me, Darlene, not Darlene, no.
When you're growing up. Your brothers and sisters.
Let me see. Norman. I was the oldest, then Norman, and Maisie, and one more. Who was the last one? Can't remember.
Norman, Maisie, you. I don't know of any others. Who else?
I think there were 4 of us. Maybe not, since I'm not remembering it. See, I haven't thought about this stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. So you're the oldest. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then who was next? Norman or Maisie?
Norman.
Okay, and then Aunt Maisie.
David. My brother David.
Oh, how do we forget David? Jeez.
Hmm?
Yeah, how do we forget David?
Yeah.
So is he the youngest?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So what were your personalities like growing up, the 4 kids?
Well, you know what comes to mind? Sometimes we didn't get along. And one time, my mother was at work. Norman and I were at home. I think it was Norman. And something was going on, and I picked up a shoe, threw it at him. It kept on going. My mother had this all glass brake front, you know, and I broke that curved glass.
Uh-oh.
Nothing for you for Christmas. You know, it was around Christmas. I've never forgotten that.
Oh, that's funny. And that's funny. What were your parents like? Let's back up a little bit. What were their personalities like? What were they like?
Well, they both worked, so you know they were gone a lot, like so many families today too. Mm-hmm. Well liked. I mean, you know, they had people that just loved them. And their entertainment would be playing cards, like my father's sister, Aunt Charlotte, and her husband and friends, the Baileys. They would come, say on like Friday night or Saturday night, and they'll all sit around and play pinochle, or maybe another game, but I remember pinochle. And they were friends for many, many years. Aunt Charlotte's husband was a tombstone maker. So he did a lot of cemetery monuments and stuff.
Neat. That's interesting. And your mom working at the sewing factory, what kind of stuff did she sew? Do you remember?
Dresses, usually some of the dresses.
Is that where, I know that you sew too, is that where you picked that up from your mom?
Well, I had sewing in school.
Uh-huh.
7th grade, had sewing.
And where was the sewing factory? Was that nearby in Baltimore?
In the neighborhood, not far away. Building, I think, is still there.
Was it like a big building or like a little tucked in a row house kind of thing?
It was a. Do you know where the old Montgomery Wards is on Monroe Street near Carroll Park, across the street from Carroll Park?
Yeah.
We'll come back up the hill, where the road goes over the train tracks. It was back in that area where she worked in one of those buildings.
Interesting.
I'm trying to think of the name. Limburg? I think it started with an L, the name of the building. Like, could have been Lexington. Anyway, but she worked, she could walk to work. And then later on in life, she worked in a dry cleaner place on Wilkins Avenue.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so back to so you got your siblings there, and your do you any stories stand out from childhood? Growing up, what kind of stuff did you do for fun?
Sleigh riding, we loved sleigh riding, and we would go to what was called the dump. It was the back area where houses were built, and then a little space, and then a sewing factory. But in between the two, there was a hill that we could use for sleigh riding. And we had a lot of fun there. And we liked snow.
What did you do when it wasn't snowing? What kind of stuff? Did you go to the movie theater?
I can remember volleyball, archery, bow and arrow. Those two things. And traveling with my father, taking walks through Carroll Park. It's off of Frederick Avenue, but it's not called Carroll Park.
Gwynns Falls, that
Yeah.
Leakin?
Yeah, we would go to Leakin too. But he would take us, and we would pick daisies and buttercups and things like that. And we would take hot dogs and rolls, and he'd make a fire, and we'd have our lunch like that. And we loved picking the daisies and the violets. And my father played baseball. And sometimes the way that we would go, we would be looking down on a baseball park, and we'd watch baseball. And near where they lived on Holland Street, at the bottom of that street and to the left, there was this big vacant lot where they would play ball. The neighborhood would have games.
Baseball games, that's cool.
Yeah.
Did you guys...
Well, they're still playing baseball games, right?
Yeah. Did you go see the Orioles back then?
They were involved with following the Orioles. And we did go see some ball games, but I don't know that they were Orioles or just a neighborhood kind of game. And
what kind of stuff? What do you remember from school? What was school like? Were you guys all good students?
One of the first things I'm remembering as I think about it is I think I was in third grade, and I did a drawing of like a frontiersman, pioneer, and the teacher put it up. It was a big thing like this, like over the board. They had space to put people's pictures. And when I think back, I wonder if that's what started me on artwork, because I did like to draw. But just the other day I came across like a photograph album. And I had done a lot of paintings, but I couldn't really keep any of them because I didn't have space for them here. But I noticed there was a catalog, not a catalog, what do you call it when you save them in a book like that?
Like a photo album?
Album, yeah, that's the word I want. But I missed the painting and doing that kind of stuff, but my life's just been, it was one way here, and since I've been here, it's just no comparison.
You're talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
Like now with the painting stuff.
I haven't touched a paintbrush. I think I can say that truthfully. And I like to paint.
Oh, you should pick that up again.
if I live long enough. I figure I might just as well aim for 100. Why not?
Yeah. You got good genes in the family. Let me just stop and start this and switch cards out real quick, Mom. This is great. 1 second. Okay, we're good. So,
And this book down here, I think that's like 1700s. It looks like it too today.
what book is that?
That reddish
Oh,
little worn book.
look at that later. Back up a second. So tell me, we went from 3rd grade to now.
Okay.
What happened in between?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like
So
yeah.
I went to school down the street,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there I went to Gwynns Falls Junior High School, and there I went to Western High School.
Really, you went to Western, like Poly Western?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah. Now they have something else added on, a number or something, and I imagine it's the same school, but I don't know. Is the building still there?
Well, it's in Cold Spring and Falls, like right there. That's still there. I drive past there all the time.
I'm not sure about. Now, would Cold Spring and Charles be north of where I was living?
Yeah.
Because we would walk most of the time, but occasionally we'd get a ride.
You'd walk from South Baltimore to Cold Spring?
Junior high, we walked. Occasionally I walked from Western for reasons. There was a reason that worked out that way. Maybe it was too late for the last bus or something.
Yeah.
But we walked. I don't know if you're familiar with that area, but West Baltimore Street, if you would go out there and you go through part of Gwynns Falls Park, it was kind of the back way to the junior high school.
Well, okay. So what was the junior high school? Which was that?
Junior, Gwynns Falls Junior
Okay.
High School.
And Western High School. Seems like, I don't know where the Gwynns Falls is, but the Western High School seems like a far away from Holland Street. Seems like there would be something closer.
No, not at that time. I don't think so.
Huh.
But it was a good school as far as I remember.
It is still now. It's one of the best high schools in the city.
Are they in the same place?
Yeah, the Poly Western right now. It's.
Are they together like now?
I don't know if one's for boys or one's for girls.
Yeah,
but,
right. Usually that's what it was.
I'm not sure how much intermingling there is there, but it's like it's right in the same area, both those schools.
Is it on North Avenue by any chance?
No, it's at Cold Spring and Falls Road. It's right by 83, which might not have existed when you were going to school, but.
So anyway, I took a commercial course, shorthand, and loved history. In fact, I have a book a wedding announcement that my history teacher had made for me. It was my announcement, but she had an artist overlay it. It's hanging up in there with my other wedding stuff.
Oh, neat.
What else can I tell you?
I
like sewing.
I remember you worked in the Red Cross at some point. I remember seeing the photo. Tell me about when did you do that?
Well, from high school, I went right to the Red Cross and worked in the Home Service Department as secretary to the director there. And then a few years down the road, they had people taking calls at night after hours. So then a few years down the road, and I married, and then when Denny was born, I took these emergency calls from like 4:30 at night until like 8 or 9 o'clock whenever the office opened.
Oh my goodness.
And then I had to relay what I did, the doctors I talked to. And
what kind of emergency calls stuff?
Well, for servicemen, the field directors out in the bases would have a serviceman come in and say, my dad's ill, I want to go home and see him. He might not live, or whatever the story was. So then the field director would contact our office to verify, so then I'd have to call the doctors and get a report on the father's condition and send it back. And they'd also ask for a recommendation whether they thought it would be a good idea for the son to come. Maybe he was passing.
Mm-hmm. So you would...
And I did that for a long time.
Interesting. So you would deal with like people who they might be at a military base in Kansas, but their family lived in Baltimore area,
Yeah.
for example.
The family of the servicemen who our direct contact was with.
Okay.
And the field directors, because the other thing is we had the teletype machine. I had to, before I stopped working in the office, started working at home because of having children, they had a teletype machine, and we would just type our message on that to the field director.
Oh, that's like the early day internet.
Yeah, and they would...
But it only went to one place. Yes, the teletype?
No, any field director. They would send a message to us asking us to verify circumstances.
Uh-huh.
And then we would make the necessary contacts and send the information back.
I see.
And the decision was made, yes, no, and they would correspond back to us so that we could tell the family.
So, Bex, this is...
I was secretary to the director, but then when I worked at home, I was like a caseworker.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the other people were called that did it during the day.
What, let's back up a little again. Where did you meet Papa?
Where did I meet Papa? Well, he went to school with my brother, Norman. And
I didn't know that.
yeah, they were pals in school. And Norman would come home telling us this ridiculous, funny stories about what the Drenner twins had done that day. And of course, that's how we got to know him. And then...
do you remember any of the ridiculous things that they did? Any of the stories?
Well, ride bicycles around the hallway. I remember that.
Did you ever hear a story where Donald took Dewey's test and Dewey took Donald's test?
I don't know
one
whether
would study math and one would study English, whatever.
I don't know whether that really happened or was a joke.
A story, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm sorry, I cut you off. You were talking about you met Papa because he was, Norman was friends with
my
him.
brother's
Yeah.
friend. Mm-hmm.
And, but Papa wouldn't have been older than him? Than Norman? Yeah, because you were the
Oldest.
oldest.
Yeah.
Not by much, though, as far as Norman.
Okay. So, anyway, so they met, so then what happened? Did Norman brought Papa home one day? Or how did you guys...
No. I think it was around a Christmas holiday, and Dewey took me to his house. And when you go in the house, it's a parlor, and I was left in that room for a few minutes, and then Dewey came back in the room, and we're talking, and then the real Dewey walked in the room. Because, see, they were identical twins, and I didn't know he had an identical twin brother. Up the tricks.
That was funny.
Yeah. So that's how we got together.
Okay, so house...
They lived on Frederick Avenue across from the cemetery.
Yeah, I know
near
that
the
house.
cemetery.
That neighborhood's not too good right now, either.
No. Mm.
Actually...
Have you been to Furrow Street area, then? Or
A
Ashton?
long time.
Oh, it makes me want to cry.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awful.
Actually not too long ago, I did a little bike ride and I rode down, there's trail through Gwynns Falls, and I went to that cemetery and saw, I guess, Pop-Up's father's
Did you just
grave.
stumble on the grave, or you knew where to
I
look?
told him.
He told me where to look,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, more or less, and it's, yeah, anyway,
Herbert Graves,
that's it.
right?
Herbert Graves Drenner. So you
Well,
got
our mother and father are there, and Aunt Barb, a lot of
No,
family.
it's a different cemetery. They're in Loudon Park.
Oh yeah, Wilkins Avenue.
Right.
Yeah.
So okay, so how old were you when you got married to Papa?
About 20. Go on my bedroom wall, right as you go in the door on your left. Try to,
So then where did you guys live after you got married?
well, we found an apartment on Mount Holly Street, off of Edmondson Avenue. Do you know where that is, Mount Holly Street?
Not offhand. I know where Edmondson Avenue is though.
And it was a second floor apartment, and I think the rent was like $35 a month. And we both worked, so we weren't home much. And we weren't there very long. I don't even know if it was a couple years or a year. But one night we came home, and we were asked to move. We made too much noise, but we were never home. But what it was, they wanted to raise the rent, and the rents were regulated, and it wasn't approved. So then we were too noisy. That's how that came about. What year was that then?
45.
1945?
January
Okay.
25th, 45.
So you're in this apartment for $35 a month?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
It was maybe only a few months.
Yeah.
So Dewey's friend,
Where's Pop-Up working at that time? You're at the Red Cross then, working, right?
When you were
yes,
married.
yes. Where was Pop-Up working? Was he working at Balmer Transit then?
Probably was.
Yeah, but what's a trucking company maybe?
No.
No?
Balmer Truck Rental after that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
No. Baltimore Truck Rental doesn't, well now I'm thinking that.
Transit transformed into that.
Mm-hmm.
A segment of it. Anyway, but he worked with Donald as a plumber for a while.
Yeah.
Because he told me that Donald would, my dad's digging a ditch, right? He's a ditch digger. And he's down, digging this ditch, right? He might be 6-8 feet down in there. And Dad's getting scared. Oh, your walls fall in, you get back. Donald handed him down a bottle of wine on a rope. Have a drink, dude, keep going. That's as I remember it anyway.
So
So we,
yeah.
so from there we went to, I see the street and the place in Caton Avenue, and it may have been a Caton Avenue address. It was a friend's home who was in the service, and his wife lived across Caton Avenue. Mm-hmm. She was here, we were here, across the street. And from there, did we go to, did we start to build on Oak Avenue at that time, maybe? I think we must have. So we bought property down in the Glen Burnie area and started to build a house.
And you bought the property and you just built it yourself in your free time.
With help from other members in the family, like a good friend of Norman's, I think it was.
And so how long did that take to finish?
Well, Darlene was born shortly after we moved in there. it took a while, and we moved in when the first floor was finished. It had an apartment like upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we didn't need that space at the time. But
Oh,
as,
you rented the space?
well, it wasn't finished then,
Yeah.
you know, so we couldn't do anything. But by the time it was finished, Maisie, my sister, and her husband got married and moved in our apartment.
Oh, with Uncle Fred, she lived in the upstairs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then their family grew, so they bought the little lot, I shouldn't say little lot, but the lot right next to us, and they built a house there. So she had quite a few children there. And then when they outgrew that house, they went over to the next street and up the road a little bit and built another nice stone house, and that's where they lived, I think, until they moved to Pennsylvania.
Huh, I didn't realize that they had that many a bunch of kids in Baltimore. I never knew that.
Yeah, they did.
So,
Seven or nine.
Okay, so
My grandmothers were
Janelle,
9, I think.
And who was next to the last? Brian and Janelle.
Janelle's the youngest.
Right. They were the last two of 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so why did they move to Pennsylvania?
A job. Freddie's work.
Okay.
They had their own business.
Right, I know he had the tire business. Anyway, so that's a side. So you guys are in this Oak Avenue place, and Aunt Darlene was born there. Did all the kids live there?
Yes, I'd say. Because I think we were there about 15 years. Do you remember, Dan? And then we moved down on Ferdinand Avenue.
And why did you move? For you needed more room, or?
Oh, it was all one floor.
So what are you asking me? Why did who?
Why did? Well, I'm not asking you anything. But whoever. Well, why did you move out of Oak Avenue to Ferdinand?
I think it didn't fit us as well.
You wanted something new.
One
You
floor.
wanted to build a one-story house.
One floor.
And pardon me. Ooh.
Ice cream. Sugar crack.
That house is still there and it looks pretty good. Have you been by it, Danny? Oak Avenue?
Yeah, a lot. They've added on to it and added on to it.
Really?
Yeah. It's kind of not a good job. The additions don't look good, but it looks okay.
On the front they added stuff?
No, back.
Uh-huh.
So just ask you.
I'd like to tell you a story about one of the experiences we had building it. It's a memorable story. There's no storage down past, where the road goes down. The storage was up at this level and then nothing for the wide open spaces. So you had to have a septic tank and a dry well. So I think it might have been the guy that we rented that apartment about, I mentioned, that dug the dry well. It was quite deep, maybe 15 feet or something like that. You couldn't remember.
What?
The dry well.
I remember it.
But you did not see it when it was open.
Okay.
We could have if we had a plumbing problem or something. But we had all the plumbing pipes, from the house there, all connected. And a storm came up.
Okay, good to go. Uncle Paps.
He was a big help. I think he might have been a builder himself. I don't know whether he would have been called a builder at that time, but that's what he was doing, is his job.
So he had a lot of knowledge.
He helped us a lot. Do you remember him, Dan?
I don't.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of
Remember the name?
Papa's brothers or another brother or
No, he was just a friend of somebody in my family.
oh.
I thought it was Norman.
I think.
So so the kids. So you start. So Dad was the oldest, right? And then
Who was the oldest?
Dad,
Dad, yeah. I thought you said it sounded like Daryl in
No.
a way.
and then what was he like?
Oh, everybody loved him.
Yeah, Danny's not sitting in here.
Yeah.
And then
And then Darlene.
I might have been the first grandchild, and that one gets a lot of attention. You know, like from all the grandparents.
Yeah.
And
Well, for my mother and father,
it was first.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then we had Darlene, Doug, and Dale.
And what were the kids like? Did they get along well? Did they work hard?
Well, they all had things that they needed to do, and we belonged to a pool in Linthicum, and they would be on the swim team and spend a lot of time there. I did too, but it was nice. You know, they got to learn to swim. Doug, he did about the best in the swimming meets, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he was good.
I mean, it's so, like he's not even working, you know, and he's cutting through that water.
Yeah, he was built like Charles Atlas. He was built to swim. He was really
Yeah.
upper body, really strong.
He had broad shoulders.
Yeah.
Did you swim?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You swim?
Yeah.
Sure.
I got some ribbons.
I believe you.
Did you play
I
ball?
still have them. Hey, I still have them.
Yeah.
What?
Tell it
Did
about
you play baseball?
Baseball, yeah.
Yeah.
Number
What?
5 on the whatever our team was called at the time. I don't remember the name. Down at Cromwell Field. Yeah.
And swim team. The kids were on the swim team.
That was a lot of fun. Oh, I remember the cold water in the mornings in the spring when we started practicing. Oh my God. We had to get into the water. It was like 55 degrees. You know, early in the spring before the sun had warmed it.
That's cool. Can't think of anything else for now. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah.
Dad was in the Coast Guard. He served in the Coast Guard.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Papa was?
That was short term. It might have been a year. I'm not sure.
I can see a picture of him in his uniform leaning against the car.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember. When did you work at UMBC? You worked there for a long time. I remember.
16 years
Wow. And you worked with the foreign students?
for the graduate school.
Yeah.
And I ended up dealing exclusively, not in, you know, I still helped other people, with the international students because the population grew so much they needed a person just to handle that stuff. You know, visas and
Right.
do they have enough money, the language, document that, you know, that they took the test for English and all that stuff. And then I had to go over all the stuff that graduate students needed to graduate and see that they met all the requirements, that kind of stuff. Started out, they had 400 students when I went there. I don't know how many they had when I left.
It's a that school's done very well.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of reputation-wise overtaken College Park.
Has it really? Baltimore County?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think so.
High tech.
Yeah.
I know that they, you know, built a lot of more space and stuff.
Oh, it's huge. It's really gotten big. I was, you know, I was there in
Well,
Yeah, I can
1970.
I can remember parking out on the parking lot for the library. I worked in the library building. And the walk in there, you know, in the snow. They didn't close the schools so much then.
Uh-huh.
The weather must have been different.
Yeah,
Not the
were
people.
different. People were different. Yeah, like in Minnesota. Excuse me.
Things are a little wimpy now. Anyway,
So I was there for 16 years. I think I needed a couple months to get something, but I don't know what it was anymore.
Where did you go to college to finish your studies, Mom?
I did some at College Park, but a lot of classes were at UMBC too.
Yeah, I have a picture of my mom in her graduation gown.
oh, I remember that. Yeah, what did you end up getting your degree in?
Behavioral sciences. I think that's what it says. It's in there on the wall, Dan. And look at the year.
Behavioral
On the right wall. They're all right, right?
Yeah.
Oh, while you're in there, can I take a brief break?
Yeah, we can take a we can finish this up another day too. Man.
No.
What?
Don't leave yet.